I'd like to welcome Genevive Christie as our guest today. She's director of First Light Festival and also involved in publishing. And we're really happy to have you here today, Genevive.
Thank you.
Now, before we get going with some questions, let's see some examples of your work. Wow, that was great. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, Genevieve, what do you currently do and what does it actually mean on a day-to-day basis?
I'm currently the director of First Light Festival. I'm one of 4 directors, but I'm the one really on the ground. On a day-to-day basis, I spend a lot of time raising the funding for the festival, working with funding partners. I oversee the artistic programme. I develop the community projects, so I work with a lot of community groups. I oversee the press and marketing for it. I also have quite a lot of input on the look and feel of the whole festival. And I suppose I sort of, the buck stops with me, really. I'm overseeing the whole thing.
So that sounds really good and quite complicated. Today, I'm especially interested to hear your role in Full Circle Editions and how you got involved with that initiative.
Well, Full Circle Editions is a publishing company that I set up with colleagues quite a long time ago now, in about 2009, I think. And we set Full Circle Editions up because we identified that in the east of England, there wasn't really a publishing house that represented the wealth of writing talent and visual artists in the region. And we wanted to do something about that. And we wanted to be able to create books that had a real connection with the east of England, but actually also resonated nationally.
That sounds really fascinating. And actually, I think we're quite lucky, aren't we, in the east of England? We do have lots of creatives. I'm especially interested that when I think about publishing, I think about authors. I don't think about visual artists necessarily. How did that work?
Well, it was lovely, really, because our inspiration was that we wanted the books to have equal weight with text and visual art. So often a book has a really eye-catching jacket, and that's what kind of draws you to it. But we also wanted to integrate images within the book that would give the visual artist as much prominence, really, and also that would create a relationship between the artist and the writer, a bit more than there usually is. And I think that worked well in some cases and less well in others, but it meant that we had a fantastic time really meeting and bringing together a whole range of artists and photographers. It wasn't just, sort of like graphic art or painters. It was also photographers as well. And actually, I think the writers really enjoyed it too. So it was a really very creative way to work.
It sounds amazing. Now, can you tell us something about your background? Because did you train to work in publishing or arts and culture? What was your background, and how have you developed to the point where you've got to now? What's the route been for you?
Oh, no, I mean, I've done all sorts of things. I think you could say I've had a portfolio career up to this point. When I was at school, I was really interested in the humanities, I suppose, English, drama, history. But what I really wanted to do was be an actress. I loved performing, but I realised that I didn't have a brilliant memory. And I had a few occasions where I thought, I can't do this. And I also, I quite like, I think, to be the person organising things, which is something I've learnt. And so I realised I wanted to go behind the camera. And I went to university. In fact, I went to UEA and I did drama and English. And I still thought I wanted to be an actress actually at that point. But by the time I'd finished my degree, I thought, no, this isn't going to be right. And then I thought actually maybe I wanted to be a teacher. And then I had a kind of option, and I had the opportunity to have a very short-term job in what in those days was called sort of corporate videos. And I did some work on training videos where I was a production secretary. And then I kind of did a step up to slightly more glamorous videos about cars. And then I saw an opportunity to join a training scheme at the BBC. And I did that, and I had a wonderful sort of time learning all about what happened in the BBC. I was still very lowly, but I really worked my way from that through nearly every job in television. So from making tea, in those days, no computers, we were on typewriters. So when I was production secretary and then I was a PA, I found being a PA really difficult. That means a production assistant in television, because it was all about timing. And I had some wonderful opportunities on live television, but it was all about having a stopwatch in those days. And my maths was terrible, which makes me laugh now because I'm sort of dealing with maths all the time when I'm working on a budget, but I was pretty poor at it. And then I kind of became a researcher, and I really enjoyed that. And that's where I think doing a degree, was useful, because that had trained me in a way to concentrate. And I loved being a researcher. First of all, I was a film researcher. Then I became a general researcher. Then I became an assistant producer. Then I became a producer. Then I had my own production company. I really went through every level, and it was great because it meant I understood all of the aspects of working in television. And I learnt all sorts of skills through doing that, from administration, to really sort of thinking about the big picture of a project. So I thought that was really important for me. And each stage was nerve-wracking. And each stage you thought, I can't probably do this next thing. But then you do it. And I always felt that I benefited a lot from the people who were above me, and I would learn from them, and then they would sometimes give you a chance to say, have a go, and then you'd have the confidence to apply for the next position along, really.
So it sounds to me as if you've tried lots of different things. I think portfolio career is a good description. Television is multifaceted with lots of different things happening clearly behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. And presumably words, research, scripts, books, writing is in there amongst all that. I suspect that, like everyone else, it hasn't always been easy. So can you share maybe one or two of the barriers that you faced to get to where you've got to? Personal or professional, and how do you keep motivated? At the moment, we talk with young people a lot about how do you keep motivated, and it's especially difficult now, but it's always been hard to motivate oneself. How's that affected you? What have you done?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. And especially when you're a kind of freelancer, which I've been for a lot of my career, you do have to motivate yourself, and you do have to have a bit of confidence in yourself. And sometimes you don't feel like that. So again, I've taken stock sometimes and tried to see, what are my skills? You're right, the transferable skills of television were many. What I've always been interested in is people and stories. And I think that those things cross all sorts of genres and really transitioned me from being a television producer to working in publishing. When I moved into publishing, I really knew very little about it. But I was working with people who really did know a lot about it. And I think I looked and I listened, and I knew that I had some skills which they didn't have actually. I could do some of the lowly jobs to do with it, but I could also interact with people quite well. And I knew that I could do what you would call artist liaison. I really enjoyed in television working with actors and writers. I really enjoyed in publishing getting to know writers, hearing where their ideas come from, and then all the other things around it I learned. So things to do with, publishing rights, royalties, publishing timelines. I knew nothing about it, but I taught myself, and I learnt from people who did. And I suppose sometimes I thought, oh my goodness, can I do this? I go to the London Book Fair. There's all these people who've been doing it for years, and actually, you can do it. And during my time in publishing, it changed enormously. The idea of self-publishing became a thing. And actually, when we launched Full Circle Editions, it was at the time when Kindle started, and there were headlines about the death of the book. And we thought, oh my goodness me, what's going to happen to this industry? Are we going to have to pivot and do something really different? But we sort of looked around and realised that actually people do like physical books, and we could use that uncertainty to create something at that time that was a very beautiful physical thing. And I think that sort of inventiveness, coming up with ideas, benefited what we were doing as well. So I think I've had various barriers. I would say in media industries when I was young, being female was a bit of a barrier, because if you could type in those days, you were always handed everything to type. You'd go into a meeting and it would be assumed that you'd be the person taking the notes or the minutes. And something that I learned was that I always said, oh, I'm terrible at shorthand. I could do shorthand. I'd done a typing course and a secretarial course. I'm terrible at that. Really bad at doing all of that. And perhaps somebody else would like to do it. But that took me quite a while to do that. And to sort of, have the confidence to say, no, actually, I've got to, you can listen to my ideas as well. I can contribute. That took years. But
okay, so I'm really interested in what personal qualities, one or two qualities you think are needed if we were to try and follow a career like yours. What personal qualities would you think are essential?
I think you have to be flexible, and you have to sometimes change what you think you want to do. That's what I found. You have to be open to ideas and open to trying new things. You have to be curious, and you have to be self-sufficient, because sometimes the support networks aren't there. And I think that's the same for all freelancers. And then actually, conversely, you also have to work really well with people. So you have to like working with people as well. It's a really people-based industry in the arts, and relationships are so important. And you never know down the line when a relationship that you've had a long time ago, or an idea actually that you've talked about with someone a long time ago, might have its day down the line. So I think that's really important. It's a whole combination of things.
Very good. Very good. So I'm going to push you. This is quite difficult. My last question really is, for young people watching this, what top tips might you offer?
I think I suppose my top tips really are, if I was starting out now, I would firstly focus on a particular thing. Make yourself knowledgeable about a particular area that you're really interested in. And then use that knowledge and skills in a diverse amount of ways. But try and do that, because it's very attractive to have someone, if it's music, for example, really think about what part of music you're interested in and know all you can about it. Because I would say that as an older person, when you're young, youth is like gold. It's gold dust for creative people to be in touch with young people who know what's going on now. And then I think the other top tip really is around networking. Really try and get yourself out there. If you're interested in publishing, do a bit of research, find out. If you're in the east of England, look up the National Centre for Writing, which is in Norwich, and look at all the things that they're doing. And when you can, go to some of them, get in touch with them, invest in yourself in that way through kind of getting out there and meeting people. It's so important.
Genevieve, thank you so much. That's been fascinating. And I'm really, really grateful for you spending time with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.